So first of all, I want to say thank you, everyone, for coming this morning or afternoon. It's really exciting to see so many faces to names I've been communicating with for a while. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear more about BINA's gap year. We will start out. I'll introduce everyone very quickly. Then our program director, Yuval, will talk about the program at large. I will then introduce and ask some questions to our current participant and alumni who actually happen to be staff as well this year. And then we'll give a lot of time for your guys' questions. And if we have the right population, we'll do some breakout rooms for the Mechina and Shnat Shiru. So first things first, I want to let you know who's here. So first, I'll say my name is Samantha. I am the admissions and marketing coordinator for BINA's international programs. So if you've emailed us about GAP, it's been me. And then the next person I want to introduce is Yuval, who is our director of the Mechina and the Shnat Shirut. So hi, Yuval. And then Penina, who is our director of international programs. Then we also have some current participants here. Roni and Noam from the Mechina are together. And then Sophie and Lynn from Shnat Shirut. And then, of course, our wonderful program staff, Yonatan from the Mechina and Kineret from Shnat Shirut. So that is everybody here. I'm going to play a quick video to introduce BINA Gap Year, and then we'll get straight into it with Yuval.
Say that if you are interested in an adventure to come and be with Israelis, be in Israeli culture, but also travel in Israel, volunteer with Israelis, and learn so much what it means to be Jewish in Israel and what it means to be Jewish in a non-religious way, then there's no place like this. It's a huge year that is also just 1 year where you do a lot of different things. You come out of it with like really, really transformative memories and perspectives, a really totally different perspective.
For me, at the very least, when coming to Israel, I want to experience Israel for Israel. I want to experience Israel for the people. I want to experience Israel for the culture. And on BINA, you're with tons of people from Israel.
I didn't realize how different the culture was until I was in a group of Israelis, like intensively living together. It's scary at first, but everyone's scared. Everyone's with you in it, and I just don't think anything compares. So,
I volunteered at UNITAF. It's a GAN here in South Tel Aviv.
We went to Mesila. Mesila is an organization that has kindergartens, and these children are the children of asylum seekers or refugees.
It was an intense experience. At first, it was really scary, and I didn't like it, and there was like a lot of balagan every day. And towards the end, that was one of my favorite parts about BINA, is the connections I built with these kids.
This program, it's worth it if you want to learn how to be prepared for life and prepared for what's next.
The people you will be around will be here to support you, and the connections you will make here will be the connections that push you through the next years of your life. I still two years later, I guess, the people who I talk to the most, both in Israel and both in the US, are people who I met during my gap year.
So I think at the start of the year, I was an American with Israeli parents. I spoke Hebrew at home. I knew what shakshuka was, but my parents never really made it. Now I can identify as an Israeli. I feel like I have roots here. I have friends here. I have places to go here. I can make shakshuka at home. I feel within a part of the culture.
So far, you see the sky bright, you don't know why.
You learn a bunch of skills that you just didn't learn before, and having all of these challenges makes you grow. I'm still the same person, but I've grown, but I'm 1,000 times more mature than I was at the beginning of the year. I think that I can handle life. I feel like I can handle whatever life throws at me now. Yeah, it might be a little difficult, but life isn't easy. And the Mechina definitely teaches you that, but it also is a positive environment to teach you that.
I don't think there's any other program like a Mechina in the world, where it like prepares you for life, basically, especially at the Gap, prepares you for life, prepares you for college, for what's next to come.
At the end of it, like I came out with some really, really, really close friends that I never imagined coming out of this program.
And we all ended up loving each other like a family, and it was great. So yeah, you should come. You'll learn a lot.
Awesome. Okay, so that was our little video introduction. I'm now going to hand the microphone over to Yuval to talk more about BINA Gap Year and our 2 tracks.
Great, thank you, Samantha. It's great seeing all you guys. Let me just change your gallery so that I'm seeing also your faces. It's great to meet you guys, those of you coming in to meet us for the first time. My name is Yuval Linden. I'm director of our Gap Year programs. I'll say a few words about myself, but I'll talk about the program because that's the center of it. But I've been director of BINA's Gap Year programs for the past 9 years. My profession is in informal education. My degrees from university are in history, and you guys who are here already suffer from that a bit because that's what we learn together, Israeli history and society. But I work in informal education because I very much believe in that, especially in this phase of working with young adults. I'm originally from Jerusalem. I live now in Hod HaSharon, father to Agam, and my daughter married to Tal, and both my parents are from abroad. They both came on Aliyah from London before I was born. So I grew up in an English-speaking household, so I'm bilingual myself, which is kind of fun to have more bilingual people over here during the year with us. And just a word of kind of preemptive apology. There might be like 3 minutes I'll need to step out quickly for something that was unplanned here, but it's okay. We'll keep going, but just so that I don't suddenly disappear. So what has been our gap year? We'll be going and drilling down into specifics as we go, but the BINA Gap Year is an international English-speaking program within our Israeli programs. And I think that already from the start goes on to the heart of what we're doing here, because I've been working for many, many years with international programs coming to Israel. And there are mainly speaking 2 types. One is meant for only for people who are Hebrew speakers, fluent in Hebrew, and can come and join any Israeli program. And the other one is for non-Hebrew speakers who come and spend a year in an international setting within the gap year, wherever they are. Our program, both tracks that we're offering, are basically joining an Israeli program, either a mechina or a shnat shirut, both Hebrew words, and the fact that we don't translate them in their name isn't by coincidence. We could give them an English name, but off the start, we want you guys to understand that it's part of joining an Israeli setting. So I'll get into what the difference in the program is between the 2 tracks are in a second, but both of them combine these 3 or these 4 kind of elements within them. First one is learning, and we're not talking here about academic learning, even though there is an option to get college credit for some of the courses, but that's part of the issue, not the main issue. The issue is more to deal with learning that is based around identity, learning that's based about who I am and what do I want to do in life. It's about exploring your Jewish identity, your relationship with Israel, your thoughts about social justice, and being active in the world and society. So the learning has got to do a lot with that. And I'll maybe have our participants and alumni try elaborating about what for them the difference was between learning in high school, learning in the mechina, and learning in college, because they're all the same verb, but I think they're completely different things. The second thing is action. We believe in that connection between learning and going out and doing something with it already during this year. And our action is being involved in kind of volunteer placements in missions that we have within the society here in Israel, in Tel Aviv. And being an active part of society is a major part of both programs in different kind of levels, each one. The other one is community, and our programs are about joining a community, like I said, an Israeli community, and being part of that together. And the last one, and I think that this is the thing that is the most hard for international participants to understand, is that this is a leadership program. It's built to develop skills to be able to not only be, I think one of the alumni in the movie, they said, be able to kind of get along in life, but to be able to lead in life. The idea is that our alumni get to their college life after they finish the program much more mature and ready, not only to kind of handle what is thrown at them, but be able to do more than they expected that they would be able to do. So these are the elements that comprise both programs, but let's run forward a bit to see what the two tracks that we have. So the two tracks that we're offering here is the Tel Aviv Mechina program, what we're calling the Gap Leap program going into next year, and the other one is a Shnat Shirut. Now a bit about those words in Hebrew. Shnat Shirut, Shana is a year, Shirut is service. Basically, the translation would be service year. And that's a program that puts more emphasis on social action and really life alongside Israelis. It's a group of around 12 participants, 6 of them international participants, 6 of them Israelis. Sophie, who's here, is from the international participants. Lynn, that's here, is from the Israeli participants. And the idea is that they're experiencing this year together. They're both the same age, and they're both doing a Shnat Shirut, a year that is focused on being very, very active in society, taking a kind of a leading role in their volunteer placements, being them on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, so that it becomes a major part, maybe for some of our Shnat Shirut, for the majority of our Shnat Shirut, the first experience of taking a kind of grown-up adult position of kind of basically they're with the staff. They're working with the staff in a volunteer placement, and they become a volunteer. They become meaningful volunteer personnel within that sense. Maybe, nowadays we can understand a lot from examples in the days of COVID-19. Shinshinim, yes, which is our nickname for people who are doing the Shnat Shirut, the year of service. Shinshinim, throughout all of the lockdowns and everything, were considered essential personnel. Just as an example of what it means to be a Shinshinim, and Shinshinim were vaccinated among the first in Israel alongside the educational staff of schools. So that's not the focus of everything, but that's kind of just an example of the fact that we're not playing what if. This is being a meaningful part in social action in Tel Aviv. Our second track, a more veteran track that we've been doing for years, Shnat Shirut, this year's cohort is our first year doing it. They're doing an amazing job in kind of setting the way for what we hope will be a year-long of tracks of a growing phenomenon. The other program, the Tel Aviv Mechina, what we're calling our Gap Leap program, is basically joining. Mechina comes from the Hebrew word lahachin, to prepare, preparation. In Israel, it's preparation for the army service, but also for the Israelis, as Noam, who's here with Roni, who's an Israeli mechinist. Noam said it's not just focused about preparing the Israelis for the army service, it's about preparing them for life in general. The same idea of learning and social action and activism and community and leadership for them. And the emphasis there is more on learning and leadership alongside the Israelis. That means there isn't a program that is better than the other. They're both a question that you need to ask yourself where your heart is more. I think that our Shinshinim get their drive a lot of time from the social action, from the activism, from the meaningful volunteering. Our mechanistim get their drive much more from the learning process that they undergo throughout the year. So those are the kind of two tracks that we have going into there. One forward. Okay, maybe we'll have Jonathan for a second. I just need to step out for a second. Maybe we'll have, we can run one forward and have Kinneret talk about Shnat Sharut for a second. I'll be.
Absolutely. Kinneret, you want to take over?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kinneret. Just to briefly introduce myself, I'm from Boston, Mass. And I was in the Mechina Gap in 2015. And then I am a graduate of Middlebury College with a degree in geography. And then I came back this fall to be a madricha, sort of a counselor for the new Shnat Sharut program. So I'm very excited to talk about it. This is my group pictured, the international participants, Sophie here. And Lynn is also on this call. So Shnat Sharut, it's a new program for BINA, and it's very unique Shnat Sharut program in Israel in that it integrates international and Israeli participants. I think it's maybe the only one or one of two in the whole country that does that. And so our participants live in a communa, which is the Hebrew word for commune, which really means fully cooperative living. They receive a budget from BINA as an organization, and they make decisions as a group how they're going to spend it, and how they're going to really live their daily lives together. So it's a very strong emphasis on the group. I lead them through processes of group dynamics, as well as them leading themselves through those. Becoming an indispensable part of your morning and evening volunteer placements, I think Sophie and Lynn can definitely attest to this, that they have really real responsibilities at these placements because they're there every day, and the staff there really rely on them. And the kids expect them to be there every day. And maybe I'll speak briefly about those placements, just so you can get sort of a sense of what that might look like. They all take place in South Tel Aviv, which is where the BINA campus is. And most of them involve youth who are designated to be at risk, either by welfare or social services, or in sort of youth community centers that serve the general population in these areas. And then classes on BINA campus happen twice a week on Sundays and Thursdays and involve a wide array of topics, including Yuval's Issues in Modern Israel, and Penina teaches a wonderful debating class, and they learn Tanakh or Bible and many other things, and also receive guidance on how to be the most effective volunteer possible at their placements.
Hi, thanks, Kinneret, for stepping in. I heard most of it. I'll just add the Shnat Sharut before we run back to the Mechina B program. I think the emphasis in the Shnat Sharut, I think the two things that you need to ask yourself if you're interested in this program is that, first of all, we're talking about a program that the day-to-day is more focused on the meaningful thing that happens to me, okay? How much I learn from being active and committed to kind of the volunteer placement, to my educational role. It's kind of moving much more from the being a participant to being staffer in your volunteer placement. And that is an amazing process that I see from the group that I'm meeting in the past half a year, how much it's meaningful for them. And the other thing is that Shnat Sharut in their day-to-day life are much more kind of a high level of autonomy and responsibility. I think that shouldn't be underestimated. Shinshinim don't need constant hand-holding. That's not what we do. We don't do that exactly also in the Mechina, but it's a high level of autonomy. They live in an apartment, which they know how to run, and they run a budget. And Kinneret and staffers are kind of working with them, but they're working with them to develop that autonomy and responsibility. So those are two things I want to emphasize. Let's go back, Samantha, to the Leap Mechina. So this is an exciting program because we've taken what we've been doing for already many years as our Mechina, our pre-army program with an international gap group within. And we've partnered up with the Oshman Family Jewish Community Center in Palo Alto in California to create a groundbreaking program called the LEAP. LEAP is acronym for learning, experience, active, and peoplehood, activism and peoplehood. And the idea is being part of an international group inside an Israeli Mechina. That means you come and you're with 13 international participants in an international group, but you are part of a bigger Israeli Mechina, around 60 participants in the Israeli Mechina. And within that Israeli Mechina, there is one group that is basically twinned with you, and you have a more meaningful experience with them together. That's the LEAP kind of cohort working together. And that's how the program is built. So you're part of an international group inside an Israeli Mechina. And if that sounds complicated, it's because it is. But complicated in a good way. That means it's worth the hassle because what you get is being part of this kind of Israeli experience coming to Israel. There's a focus on study of Judaism through unique secular Israeli perspective. We deal here with Jewish identity. We just access our Judaism as a culture, and we want to explore that and understand what it means for us and what it means to be Jewish in the 21st century. Also in the Mechina, we volunteer with at-risk, not necessarily youth, but children in the community, but not only at-risk, volunteering with the communities that are around us. And it's be around all sorts of teams within a Mechina that allow to develop your leadership skills. Okay, if the Shinshinim do it more outside with the kind of people who are there staffing, the Mechina get a lot of their leadership experience within the program, kind of leading each other, experience in leading each other. I think that if I'm kind of explaining the difference between these two, then the Mechina is not only based more on learning the Mishnat Shaul, but also on the other hand, you do get less of the kind of volunteering social action. It's more limited. Again, you can't hold the stick at both ends. We do have both components in both programs, but the kind of the level the things are done is different in that sense. The LEAP cohort is a joint, like I said, a joint Israeli international cohort that take classes together in English throughout the year. They undergo kind of a process together. And during the year, a bit after Purim, I imagine, once we finalize the details, once the world goes back to being slightly more normal, then they travel to San Francisco Bay Area for a month during the year, the Israelis and the internationals, and they come back and they undergo a process of continuing learning, social action, exploring the Jewish peoplehood and diaspora. That means they go together on this journey. It's we view it as groundbreaking in the sense that mostly when Israelis and international participants meet, it's only here in Israel and only involving kind of relationship with Israel. And we think that the Jewish world is more complex than that. And we want them to have an experience of getting to know what a Jewish community outside Israel. So I can discuss that for both international participants and for the Israelis, trying to more kind of leveling the playing field between everybody so that everybody can take part in this kind of big Jewish conversation that we're having. So learning, again, in both programs, our approach is an empowering, handle, relevant, uniquely Israeli experience. We view Judaism as an open thing. We're pluralistic in the sense that there are many teachers here from different streams of different views of walks of life. And the idea is to have this experience that I think in most ways is trying to access our kind of our common identity and try and explore it and understand what of it is relevant and what we want in our life. So that happens in a kind of the classic Jewish text, the Tanakh, the Talmud, the philosophy, literature, social justice, but also Israel, kind of dealing with Israel. I teach a lesson about issues in modern Israel. Today, we were discussing the role of the IDF in Israeli identity and what that means. Last lesson, we were discussing the place of the Holocaust in Israeli identity. It's trying to kind of sharpen your antennas to what's going on around you in Israel. And of course, we have Hebrew, Ulpan, and immersion. It's important in that case that I think I've seen many participants throughout the years immensely improve their Hebrew, and I've seen many participants throughout the year leave with roughly the same amount of Hebrew that they got here with. That means this place has a platform for studying Hebrew, but it requires a person who sets that as a goal to kind of really immerse himself in that, also in the lessons, but also kind of in day-to-day life. If you're spending the whole time only speaking in English outside of Hebrew lessons, you will not learn Hebrew. But the Hebrew that we have 2 Ulpan lessons that are according to lessons, and another added lesson that we have from all kind of practicing kind of here. And I think the focus, and we're talking about learning, is more on conversational Hebrew. It's non-academic level Hebrew, even though the course is recognized for credit. It's more about conversational here, Hebrew, getting by with Hebrew here in Israel. And the idea is not only learning in the classroom, it's going out and experience kind of educational seminars. Shnat Sharut this weekend are going for a kind of middle of the year seminar, which they are partaking in building. The Mechina are prepared. The Mechina are preparing for another week that they're going to go in the West Bank to visit different places and talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Again, this is a bit of a challenging year in that sense, that the Mechina and Shnat Sharut were more limited in how much they could go out. We're hoping now that all of our cohorts, both Mechina and Shnat Sharut, have been vaccinated and are finishing their vaccination process. We'll be able to go out and do much more of the educational seminars that we do on an average year. So that's a learning. So I said explore Israel with Israelis, and this is important to say. Both programs, also Mechina and also Shnat Sharut, are not your tourist birthright trips. That's not the focus here. That means the idea is more about getting a complex and kind of in-depth view into Israeli society. So each one of the programs does it in a different way. The Mechina does more kind of during the week seminars that they go out and do. The Shnat Sharut do more weekend seminars that they do, more themed seminars that are focused on different things. Okay, if the Mechina goes for a week getting to know Jerusalem and its complexities, the Shnat Sharut will have a seminar for a weekend about communities in Israel. Both groups go together on a hiking, navigating, camping a few days, usually at the beginning of the year. This year, we'll probably do it in May. And it's getting to know Israel in that sense. All of these programmings are always consistent of the groups taking part in building and leading it. Again, this isn't a tourist program in birthright, not only in the sense that we're not just looking to go to kind of tourist attractions, it's also that Noam and Roni, as Mechinistim here in the group, will partake in a team that's in charge of leading the group in the Jerusalem week that we talked about. And Sophie and Lynn, when it comes to a weekend seminar to do with feminism and gender issues, will be in charge of building that educational seminars. So the participants are active in building these things, and that's part of building your leadership skills. In both programs, every other weekend is off and free to travel. In the weekend that we're on, there is programming and things that we do together. So a lot of Israelis go around and travel. And I think part of being in a mixed Israeli environment is that you have plenty of places that you're invited to go and visit. That means the Shnat Sharut are living together with Israelis and have invitations to go to their places. The people, the Gapnikim who are in the Mechina are invited to go to their places, and that's part of their day-to-day kind of life there. Social action. So our approach is giving the participants the tools to take action, because we want it to be something that they're practicing here, and then they learn how to do it in the next stages of their life. That means, and maybe Jonathan and Kinneret can refer to it afterwards, kind of what tools that gave them when they finished the program and went to college, this idea of staying active wherever you are. So it's weekly volunteer with youth, refugees, elderly, environmental conservation, peace project. All these things exist here. And also being active in society as the years go, whether it's protests that participants take part in. I think these are pictures from, I think one of the protests about violence against women. It's a big issue in Israeli society, and participants in the Mechina took part in line. And a lot of kind of projects that the participants initiate and take part in leading them. Again, the levels of the depth that participants manage to get to here in the Shnat Sharut is much more deeper, I think, in the kind of immersion into social action. But as far as activism, that exists in both programs as it is. It's important to say, I mean, we're in a COVID-19 year still operating here. Volunteering social action has been more important than ever in these times, with weakened societies suffering the most. And we've done our best during the past year to be there for them as much as we could allow with regulations and with keeping all of our participants safe and healthy. So that's social action. I think one of the strongest points, and I think you could see it in the video that we watched at the beginning, the most strong experience that our participants feel is this sense of communal life together. The fact that they're living together, also this kind of camaraderie with people that came from around the world, and also the relationship developed with their Israeli peers. And they do everything together. They're living together, they're running a budget together, they're shopping, cooking, getting these things ready. And I think it turns the experience into something very, very strong. So, I mean, it can go from the small things of being on Toranut, which is when you're making lunch, whether it's in the Shnat Sharut apartment kitchen or whether it's in the Mechina kitchen with Drora, a cook that all our participants love doing. She does not speak English, and that's also part of the experience. Planning and organizing the group trips, leader of the group for a week. You each take in turn to kind of lead the schedule per week. That means this is a program that's constantly putting you in a sense of a group that is self-motivated. What are we looking for? Who are we looking for? I think we're looking for people that are looking to make the most of this year. That means I think that all our participants, both in the Mechina and the Shnat Sharut, will attest that their day is full. And that's what we're looking for. People who are looking to come to Israel to spend their time on the beach or parties in the evening will be severely disappointed coming to a program like this. Because, like I said, the day-to-day is full and meaningful, impactful, and authentic Israeli gap year. It's easier to go to a gap year that's focused on kind of like a more light programming. In some ways, it's easier to go to a program that doesn't involve this level of Israeli immersion. You're never out of your comfort zone. Constantly, everything is explained in English. Sophie can tell you in the Shnat Shirut, when the Israelis start arguing between them in Hebrew and you're trying to catch on to what's going on, it's not always an easy experience, but it's authentic, it's real. That's real life in doing that. And I think that those are the people, we're looking for people who get excited by that, who want that. And people who are looking to just kind of, I don't know, just take a break for a year. And I think this is a very, very kind of serious break to take. And we want people that care about the things that we do here, social justice, volunteering, Hebrew, Israeli culture. All these things here are things that we do and are a big part of our day-to-day kind of schedule. So it's best if you're coming in tune with these are the things that excite you. What is included in our tuition and everything that's in the program. So we provide full room and board, food, transportation within the city, to volunteer placements, to activities that we do, all the classes and activities and trips that we have. Some of the courses are available for college credit at additional cost. The cost is to pay Gratz College in Philadelphia for the college credit. It's not that we make anything on that. It's a part of that option for those who choose it. And you get the volunteer coordination, supervision, guidance, mentorship, support, amazing community and friends. All these things are part of it. The tuition for the Mechina is $20,000. The Shnat Shirut tuition is $17,500 US. And this is something that's important to say. Masa and other scholarships are available. I've been doing this, like I said, for 9 years, and I can stand by saying that I never had a participant that wanted to come to a gap year and was suitable for a gap year that didn't come for financial reasons. We always found a way to work. Masa gives needs-based scholarship that can be very generous. There are other Jewish federations that give that, and we make sure to find ways to finance the rest. So if you're interested in this program, continue in the past. We can make it work. Again, we're a non-profit organization. Every dollar that is paid in tuition goes into the programming of the participants, and they get a real full experience with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yuval, for talking us through the program a little bit more in depth. I'm now going to introduce our current participants and then our alumni / staff, and then get to answering everybody's questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Mechina, Roni and Noam, since you guys are together. Can you each introduce yourselves real quick?
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Ronnie. I am originally from Miami. I am here for the year. I guess you guys know that now. Yeah, I did speak Hebrew before coming here. I have 2 Israeli parents, and I've really been enjoying this year so far.
Hi, my name is Noam. I'm from a small town near Netanya, if that means anything to anyone here. Yeah, I used to live in the USA when I was really little, so I learned English before Hebrew, and that's why the accent, but I'm fully Israeli.
Awesome. And can you guys tell us why you chose BINA, and then Roni, why you chose the Mechina, and Noam, why you chose to be part of LEAP, which is an international experience?
Do you want to start?
Yeah. Okay. So I originally found out about BINA because my friends knew I was looking for Mechina in the Tel Aviv area. For me, it was a huge draw to be in the city and to be able to access everything that meant, which is museums, the beach, really good public transportation, which is not something I have at home. And there's just like so much to do here. So I definitely knew I wanted to be here. And then the more I read about BINA, just like the more I liked it. I really enjoy learning, even though I hated like testing, obviously. So I like the sound of all the different classes that we had here. And it was also really important for me to feel like I was part of the community. And so the volunteering that we do here seemed really meaningful to me because everything we do is within our own community. So you actually like get to like meet and know the people that you're working with, which I thought was super cool. But yeah, so that's why I wanted to come to BINA.
So I'll say in Israel, mechina is like a really big thing. So to me, I kind of knew that I wanted to do one, so I was more prepared for the army, and I chose BINA specifically just because the topics of learning sounded the most interesting out of all the different mechinas that I looked to, and the people I met when I came here were the nicest, honestly. And a little bit about the leap. The reason I took it is the reason I chose to participate is because when I came to the mechina, I knew I was going to be with Gap people, and I didn't really think about it too much. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized that I actually don't know as much as I thought I might about world Jewry.
And he realized how cool we are.
Yeah, that's also true. And so Leap just sounded like an amazing opportunity to kind of truly understand different Jewish communities, not by saying, yeah, all Jews should like be one big community, so you come to us. It's also, if we want to be this one big community, it's also our responsibility to take that step outwardly. So it all kind of came together to make this really amazing opportunity for me.
And I guess mechina for me. Okay, so technically when I was applying, Shnat Shirut in Tel Aviv wasn't an option, but I definitely would have made the same decision if I had to make it like today. For me, like I said, one of the biggest draws was the learning that we do. And although the volunteering is super important to me, and every time we do have like a volunteering day, it tends to be like some of my favorite times. Part of what I wanted out of this year is to learn a little bit more about like my own Jewish identity and my own Israeli identity. And I think the classes have really helped me develop that side of myself. It's made me think a lot about what kind of Jew, what kind of Israeli, and what kind of person I want to be. And honestly, I think there's something like completely like invaluable in that, because I don't think I could be getting this learning anywhere else, and especially not in an American college. So I definitely am glad that I made the choice that I did.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm now going to move over to Sophie and Lynn from Shnat Shirut. Sophie, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and tell me why you chose BINA and why you chose Shnat Shirut?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophie. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. This is actually my first time in Israel. I came in speaking zero Hebrew. So a little unlike Ronnie, but it's okay. So I chose BINA because I really wanted to like get to know Israel, not on a surface level. I think like BINA's whole platform of learning about Israel through social engagement and like activism and also the learning is amazing. And I think just like the immersion that it provides for GAP and like people who aren't from Israel is something that I didn't really find in any other program. And so that was really what drew me in. And also like learning about Judaism in a secular way was very appealing to me, and sort of being able to learn about Judaism through the volunteer work that we do. Like just all of that really seemed to fit me perfectly. And then I chose the Shnat Shirut because I think, first of all, just the communa or like commune life was very appealing to me. The ability to like, I'm sorry if there's yelling, the walls are very thin in our apartment. But the idea, like being able to live with 6 other Israelis in the apartment, and to be able to like have that complete immersion, like we're just with them, we're completely on the same program. Like it's, I think you've all said it, like we're the same age, we're going through the same experiences. It's really special to me. I'm on a call. Sorry. And also, I think the idea of like being able to learn about Israel through the volunteer work and really hands-on and like being active, it like was very special. So that's why I did it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophie, and for giving us a picture of communal life. Lynn, can you introduce yourself and answer the same questions, why BINA and why you chose to be part of a mixed group for the Stadtschule?
Yes, so I'm Lynn. I'm originally from Pardes Chana. I'm right now not with Sophie in the Comuna because I got into Bidur, the quarantine, for my placement. So hearing them is like, I miss them so much. So I chose BINA also from the reasons of the classes being so appealing to learn philosophy and Judaism, not in a religious way. And also the first time that I came to the campus while I was applying to the Shnat Shirut and / Mechina back then, I felt like home. And the other places I went applying for Shnat Shirut didn't feel like this. And that's really why I chose BINA. Also, the fact that it's like a very green place. When you see it, you'll know it. In Tel Aviv, like Tel Aviv is just a city of, it's a beautiful city, but it's a very like non-green area. So BINA's campus is really like taking a breath and relaxing in all the city noises. And why I chose to be in Nahadas Comuna. I really thought it would be a great opportunity for me to like improve my English skills, but also it's like a point where I'm like me and other 5 people, like the Israelis in the Comuna, are doing a gap year, Shnat Shirut, and then the army and the international participants are doing gap year and then college or whatever. And it's crazy also to be in this specific time where, you know, you wouldn't meet each other like in a different misgeret, in a different form of, I don't know, institute, like, I don't know. But it's like a specific time where you can be with each other and learn each other's stories and really become a family for everything.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. I'm going to quickly introduce Yonatan and Kinneret, and then we will get right into your guys' questions. So let us start with Kinneret, since you are in front of me. Can you introduce yourself and tell us how your time on BINA's gap year impacted you?
Sure. So I mentioned briefly I'm Kinneret. I'm the counselor, the madricha for Hadass and Lynn and Communat Hadass in the Shnat Shirut program. And I chose BINA because, yeah, for similar reasons that were said. I think I'll speak maybe briefly to how it influences me today. And I think one of the biggest things I took away from BINA is this feeling of mutual responsibility, feeling accountable for myself and also for the people closest to me in my group and for the Mechina or the Comuna or the Shnat Shirut in general, maybe even for all Jews or the whole world, and it just expands and expands. And I think I really took that lesson with me into college, and I felt like college, which can sometimes feel so individualistic, everyone's sort of on their own path, finding community and having that be so central, and feeling responsible for the people around me and feeling like I'm being held accountable for my actions and who I am was a lesson I really took with me. So from volunteering in the community that my college was in and building those connections, I definitely see BINA as the root of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Garrett. And then Yonatan, can you tell the same question, introduce yourself, and share how you've been impacted?
I'm Yonatan. I did BINA 3 years ago at the Mechina, and what I found very special about the program was that it's kind of like a blank slate, where you get to the year, you don't really know what's going to happen because so much of it is built on the participants themselves, and that's something that I found so empowering and that I didn't really have a similar experience before. And you know, if the participants decide that it's Purim and they want to do a play, then they organize a play and they make it happen. And so I think I learned that idea of, if I see that something is missing, or if I am inspired by something, then I gather my friends and I just do it. And when I went to college, I had, you know, I think I really embodied that. And when I saw that, I went to college and I didn't have like the exact Shabbat service that I connected to, or that I felt like was meaningful. I also, like, you know, I gathered my friends and we started doing like regular Shabbat services, and we did a Yom Kippur service activity together. So that's something that I got out of it.
Awesome.
Is that good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yonatan. Great. I know we just have a few minutes left, but I want to open the floor to questions, and I can stick around for a little bit to answer anything else if we need to. I will quickly say that when we finish the call tomorrow, I'll be sending you all an email, so you'll be able to watch this back, and also links to applications for anyone who hasn't gotten started yet. And the next step after that will be to have an interview. So those are kind of next steps. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat, either to me or to everyone, and we will make sure the appropriate people answer them. So please share any questions you have for Yuval or for me or for the participants. Okay, so as far as getting started goes, this is a rolling application, which means when the group is full, the group is full. So definitely getting started as soon as possible is your best bet. The gap year will start in mid to late August. We're going to have an exact date for you very, very soon, with more information about that, just because obviously regulations are changing very quickly. For how Shabbat looks, Sophie, do you want to speak to that for the Shnat Shirut real quick?
Yeah, of course. So basically, our weekends as a Kamuna are totally independent. We're like, unless we're doing like a seminar or something special, we're completely in charge of everything. So I'll say, like, for our Kamuna now, not many of us are really like religious, but a lot of us are very like culturally Jewish. And so usually on Shabbat, we spend a long time cooking a really nice meal. Like Lynn makes amazing chalot for everyone, and it's really cute. And we'll usually like sing a few songs and have a really nice dinner together, because that's something we typically don't have time for during the week. And then we spend the night doing an activity together that the culture committee from the Kamuna has planned for everyone. And then on Saturdays, we usually take the time to relax together. Now that the weather's getting nice, we'll probably be going to the beach. We, just hang out, we read together, we like, I don't know, just like, we love like spending time together when we can. But all of the programming and like everything is from us. There's so we can really decide what we want it to be. And I think that's really like special because we can design it to fit our group.
Thank you. I see that there is a question about re-entry, so I'd love if Kinara could speak to that. I quickly do want to say the apartments are co-ed. Both the Shnat Sharut share their apartment and the International Mechina share their apartment in a building with all the other Mechina groups. Just to answer that real quickly, Kinara, do you want to speak to re-entry after gap year?
Sure. I like that phrase re-entry because it is sort of like you're exiting a world and entering another after you leave BINA, but you try to take a little bit of it with you, I think, too. I think it was an okay transition. I think the hardest part for me was I went to school with a very small Jewish population, so I think I felt that difference really strongly. But maybe Yonatan can also speak to this. But I think I think a lot of high school seniors feel really burnt out by the end of the year. I don't know if anyone identifies with that, but I definitely did. And so this year was really rejuvenating in terms of intellectual pursuits and curiosity, and I was really excited to learn again. So I think that was a super big plus. I remember being anxious about being a little bit older than everyone, but I definitely didn't feel that in any way that was negative. I think maybe I felt like I was, like you've all said, able to sort of roll with the punches and maybe keep everything a little bit of perspective.
Awesome, that's great. I know we are running to the end here, so if people need to log off, that's fine. I'll go with one more question because I think that this is a good one. Roni, could you speak to how you knew that a gap year, why you wanted to do this before your next step?
And then I think I'll refer to the question about how does COVID affect all this?
Yes, that's a great idea, Yuval. Thank you.
Okay, so I actually for a very long time did not want to do a gap year. My sister did Aardvark, which is a different program here in Israel, and it like wasn't the best experience for her. So I was like, oh my god, I'm not doing a gap year. I want to go straight to college and start the rest of my life already. And then around 12th grade, that was the first year probably that I wasn't able to come to Israel in the summer. And I realized how much I love this place and how important it is for me. And I was like, okay, maybe I should spend a year in Israel, but also I don't want to take time off. And then senior year is really hard. And I was like dying by the end of it. So I was like, maybe I should take some time off, take some time for myself, really. Just this is a year, like Yuval said, it's not easy, but it's a difficulty that I chose to be a part of. I chose to take on the challenges of living in a place where I don't like 100% speak the language. I chose to take part in these classes, and I chose to undertake this whole experience. And I think for me, that like made all the difference because I realized that I really needed a year before I started like the grind of college to really take some time to do things that I wanted to do.
Yuval, would you like to speak to COVID?
Yeah, and I'll just say that Sam and I will stay on also after this question, and Sam dropped out. We'll stay in so that we can answer anybody's question who came onto the info session, but we want to allow people to kind of stay in our time limits. But I will just say about COVID-19. Of course, none of us know how next September is going to look worldwide with that issue and what will be the case with that. I think that we can learn already from operating 2 years under like half of last year and already half of this year on the COVID-19. I think the first thing that we're able to say is that the program continues during COVID. That means whereas some gap programs kind of closed up and sent participants home, and some programs just kind of shut them in the apartment and just transferred everything to Zoom. With us, it's a constant attempt to kind of, kind of go with the punches. We're going with the changes of regulations, and that means a lot of changes as we go in the past year, half a year last year and half a year with that, but trying to keep the goals of why we came here. That means involving yourselves in social action is something that's not done any less during a world pandemic. It's much more needed. Undergoing a process of kind of studying and developing identity is something that we've managed to do also last year and also this year in what we call it Bitzel HaKorona, in the shadow of Corona this year. It's not that it doesn't affect, it's not that there are things that we would do in a normal year. For example, I said the kind of the outdoor navigation experience is usually something that we do in September or October with the Mechina and Shnat Shirut, and the participants here haven't yet been on that. That means it's something that is influencing mostly our outdoor activity and seminars and things out of here. But it is something that we're hoping that now that all of the participants have been vaccinated, that we'll be adding that on as we go. So I can't say that exactly how it affects the program because I don't know what the situation is going to be in Israel. But I will say after already doing this for over a year, or exactly a year now, since it really started affecting us, that we can surely say that the GAP program continues at this point. Most of the participants, I can really count on less than like one hand participants have decided to leave, because I think we were able to act in a secure and safe way, but continue to do what we came here to do. So that's about COVID. So let's sum up and then we'll stay and answer other questions that are here.
Yes, so I want to say thank you again for everybody joining us. Like I said, next steps will be I'll send out an email that will have a recording of this if you want to watch anything back, and also your links to applications. If you have any questions, I believe you all have my email. If you do not, it is just samantha@bina.org.il, and you are able to reach out with any questions you might have about the application process or things that didn't get answered today. But I will let our participants and staff go. Anybody who would like to stay here to ask questions, or if you want to stay around and answer questions, you're more than welcome. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us. This has been really, really great. Okay, so as far as a little bit more of the logistical differences between the Mechina and the Shnat Shirut, the Mechina also does live together communally, but most of their meals are on campus. Yuval, do you want to speak a little bit to the difference in classes for the two groups?
Yeah, of course. So I say it's mostly a difference of the capacity, the amount of courses. I think the Mechina have about twice as much classes as the Shnat Shirut participants, and the Shnat Shirut have twice as much volunteer placement, kind of social action engagement than the Mechina. So I mean, it's a matter of capacity because both groups study in the same way, kind of. Some of the lesson events are joint. I taught this morning the same, a joint group of the Mechina and Shnat Shirut cohort. So it's something that's not different in the methods that we teach. It's more about the amount and the capacity of studying. The Mechina is roughly around 60 participants, including international participants. And that means that they're a minority, but they're an important part of our Mechina. That's about the size of it. And they do eat, the Mechina do eat most of their meals here on campus in a joint kitchen that they run together. That means that they're running that. The Shnat Shirut eat most of the meals in the apartment in a more communal setting. In that case, so it's a difference in the way we operate those two programs. And about the classes are mostly in English, where the options of more and more Hebrew lessons for those who want them, both within the Mechina, but also if there's somebody in the Shnat Shirut. That means the fact that there are parallel lessons happening in Hebrew means if someone is improving in his level of Hebrew and wants to take, Ronnie, for example, here has been taking more lessons in Hebrew than a lot of members of her group because she's able to do that and she wants that. That means we're able to be more kind of also creative and also, Israel is very informal in that sense. It's not a process or a bureaucratic process of that. We have a dialogue with the participants and those who want more Israeli immersion as far as classes, and we're able to make that. But the vast majority of lessons for the group are in English. When we sometimes do things for all of the Mechina together, then sometimes there will be in Hebrew with translations for international participants. It's a balance that we try finding because it's much less easier to learn like that. It's very hard to learn with translations. But in order to incorporate them into the kind of the atmosphere and what's going on in Mechina, we don't want all their studies to be separate. So occasionally they'll have thing. Is there some explanation?
Yuval, can I add to this something?
Yeah.
I'll say that we also have our Israeli participants learning in English with the international participants. So it goes back and forth. It's not only not one side. Nam said it very nicely before. He said that the understanding that it's a mutual process together. So we have programs that are done in English, like Martin Luther King's Day, that we did a big program in English and we translated to Hebrew. And we have our LEAP classes happening in English, not being translated, it's all in English. So it goes in both ways, so that both languages kind of come together to balance it up, which is nice because you're coming as a participant to learn, but you're also teaching your fellow Israeli participants. So it goes together. It's a mutual program in that sense.
There's a question here about expectation of writing as part of classes. That's only for participants who are applying for, who sign up for college credit for some of the courses. And part of what they have to do to get the college credit is writing papers as part of the lessons. It's not something that's constantly ongoing. It's more of a kind of end of term paper that they need to write and different requirements as far as that's concerned. Yeah, there's a question here about secular Judaism. Secular is not a word that translated properly into English. The Hebrew word chiloni can be translated in a few ways. Chiloni in a lot of international congregations is non-affiliated, non-observant. I think what we're trying to do here is to build a positive Jewish identity that's not based on what am I not doing as a Jew, but what am I doing as a Jew. And part of that is asking people who are not approaching the Judaism through the kind of halachic observance, but are looking for a different connection to Judaism, is to be able to access it in a positive way. And that's the Chiloni approach that we have here in Israel, to kind of take sovereignty of your Jewish identity and understanding what you want it to be. How many college credits are available and how much extra do they cost? I think we have 2 to 3 courses that we can sign up for college credit. If I'm not mistaken, and then maybe Samantha can check the numbers and get back to you with an accurate number, it's somewhere between, I think Gratz College charge about between $800 to $1,000 per course or something like that. They charge, but we'll check the numbers and we'll take that. We only kind of act as a middleman in this between Gratz College and that. So we'll check the numbers and we'll allow back. I'm going to have to step off because I have a conversation with the GAP parents of this year's cohort. So it's a kind of international Zoom day for me. It's great seeing our staff and participants here, and it's great to hearing all of you. And those of you who have come to see about what we're doing, hope to see you next year.
Thank you, Yuval. It looks like we're reaching a natural end here, so I will let everybody get back to their days. I'll say thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.